Call the meeting to order.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome you all to a meeting of the Board of Commissioners. Remind you that a record is being kept of the meeting, both a video record and an audio record. Do we have any awards or correspondence?
We do not.
No.
We do not. Any acknowledgement of previous meeting minutes, February 21st, 2018, March 8th, 2018, and January 21st, 2018.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of the minutes of February 21st, March 8th, and January 21st.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Additions to the agenda.
It's not on your printed agenda, but there is another road department item that's on the overhead agenda, and that relates to, let's see.
Is that number 10?
It's actually going to be number 4, or 4A. It's right after the purchase, I guess 3A, and it relates to Westland Road traffic control changes. Oh, there it is.
But it's listed as 4 up here.
Up there, yeah, but it's not on your printed one. And then also not on your printed one is the Charter Committee appointment.
So what's the one that we're adding?
It's the Westland Road.
Isn't that the one that's on 4?
Right. It's not on this
not on
agenda.
this one.
It's not on this one. You have it, right, you have it off that one, which does have everything.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
All right. Any others? Okay. Is there anybody who wishes to address the board on an item other than that which is on the regular agenda? Okay.
My name is Robert Hall. I live in Pendleton, Oregon. And if I may, could I show you a couple of pictures that I took? May I show that
Sure.
to the Commissioner of the Board? It's a, there you go. It's a road sign that's been shot 8 times by some kind of a rifle or high-powered weapon or gun. So anyway, it was Sunday, 2 Sundays ago. I was on a walk up Lee Street grade where you cross the 8th Street Bridge, and there was a man standing in the middle of the Y on 8th Street. The Lee Street grade where you go over to John's Lane, and he was standing there shooting his pistol. And so I stopped and slowed down, and I thought, well, so what do I do? Do I continue my walk? Is this guy practicing to shoot up some public agenda or something, or what? So anyway, I just said, okay, come on, Bob. So I went ahead and went on my walk and passed him and went by where he was standing to shoot, where he was shooting. He was in the middle of the road. I couldn't tell what he was shooting at. And so I called the sheriff, got the dispatcher. She said, well, we'll do what we can, and we'll see if we can get somebody out there. And so I hung up and went back to where the man was shooting and picked up some brass, and it was a 9mm pistol, what I could tell that was being used. I could not tell what he was shooting at. Commissioner Elfring then went ahead and emailed the sheriff's office, and they contacted me, and I talked to them. But in the area that I was walking, probably maybe 500 feet, there's 5 signs there, and they've all been shot up. So, and I know you deal with a lot of county signs that have been shot, but to me that seems like a high concentration of signs that are being shot. And it's a fairly common place for garbage to be dumped. So they use garbage that's being dumped as things to shoot at. So again, along this stupid walk I found a billfold that I picked up and showed some ID, and so I called the city police because it was in the city, and they said, well, we'll send some. They wanted to know who the billfold belonged to, so I went ahead and told them and said, well, I'll have an officer up there at your home to pick up the billfold. So come to find out that this man, the city of police had some experience with. Now, this is a completely different situation and event, but the city police said that in that area, the state police have some kind of a monitoring camera or something that they use once in a while to maybe catch somebody shooting up signs or whatever. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but maybe you know. So I was thinking, well, maybe the cost of replacing the signs, which I'm sure you're aware of, the cost of replacing a road sign, maybe that would, maybe a monitoring camera would help to catch people that are shooting the signs, maybe dumping, and maybe that would help cover some of the cost of these road signs if you could catch the culprits, and maybe with a camera. So anyway, I appreciate the sheriff's department contacting me. I'm not the only one that goes on that walk, and I guess the main thing was it was disturbing to see someone. He was a male, probably 45 or 50 years old, standing in the middle of the road, probably at 4:30 in the afternoon on a Sunday, shooting his pistol. And so anyway, I guess what I'd like to have done is taken his pistol away from him, because I took hunter safety course when I was 12, and I know that it's illegal to shoot from the road. But I didn't do that because I was unarmed. So anyway, that's my comment. Do you have any questions about my experience or concerns? Or
I do. Bob, was there a vehicle you could have gotten a license number?
He was walking.
He was
There was
walking.
no vehicle. And so I turned around, after I called the dispatcher, I turned around, walked back down, thinking that maybe I could follow him. Maybe that was stupid, but he was gone. And so I took the pictures and thought that besides calling the sheriff's department, and I talked to, was it that I talked to, that you emailed, and so, I mean, they gave me as much information as help as they could, and I know it's a big problem, and so anyway, I appreciate you taking the time to.
Did you talk to the man at all?
I did not.
Okay.
I didn't talk to him. I figured that he knew that it was illegal for him to be standing there shooting the pistol. I knew it was illegal to be standing there shooting the pistol, and I had I did not want to confront him. I was unarmed.
And you don't know if the wallet you found belonged to that same gentleman?
No, that was a completely different situation, and the only reason I mentioned that was that I talked to the city policeman about this issue, about the man standing there shooting the pistol, and like I said, it was a 9mm casing that I found that were fresh, and there was a lot of empty brass laying on the ground in that area. It looked like there was about a .223 brass laying there. There were lots of the 9mm shell casings laying around on the ground, fresh ones, ones that had been run over. And so it looked like to me there's quite a bit of activity of shooting, and that's within less than a mile from Pendleton. And closer to that, to homes that, well, where I live. And that sign that I showed you, the stop sign, the bullets went through that sign, obviously, and they then traveled who knows where, but in the direction of probably the middle part of Johns Lane, between Johns Lane and Lee Street grade, and say where I live and where Commissioner Murdoch lives. So
My ears perked up.
So I don't know where, it's really hard to tell where those bullets went after they went through the sign. And it was a fairly powerful gun that shot that sign up, because those signs are metal. And maybe they dropped, just a few feet after they went through the sign, but I don't know. They could have traveled quite a distance. And like I say, there's 5 signs there, and they've all been shot by shotguns plus heavier weapons.
Might be a good opportunity for us to remind people that that's not the place to shoot, that it is, you can assume that a person would know that, but I'm beyond assuming what people know and don't know anymore. So
Yeah, this guy I assumed was a complete idiot, but anyway.
I would think it'd be a better thing for us to remind people where they can shoot.
Yeah.
And where they can target practice and do things like that. So I appreciate you being here.
Okay.
But at the moment, that's considered a kind of a remote location, but for the next year, it's not going to be a remote location,
Oh, okay.
because they're going to close the 8th Street Bridge within a few months. And so consequently, anyone who lives, and there's a number of people who live down at the bottom of Lee Grade, will not be able to access the bridge.
Right.
So that will become the main arterial for
Right.
all those residents coming and going. So it's not going to be as isolated as it is now.
That's what I realized, and as you well know, it's a common place for garbage to be dumped. And in fact, between the time that I did my walk and went back and took the pictures, which was about 2 or 3 days, there was a lot more shooting that had been gone on. There were a couple of paint cans that were blown all to pieces. And there was a mattress that was dumped that like had been shot up. And so it's a fairly active spot.
I know our Public Works Department goes there from time to time. They are the not designated cleanup, but they do go clean it up. But
Yeah, and I know they do that because I'm probably one of the ones that sends you pictures. But
yes, you are.
but I was just a little more alarmed when, and I know they shoot signs, but it just seems like this is a concentrated area within, like I say, within maybe 500-600 feet, there's 5 signs, and they're all shot. So, anyway.
Okay, thank you for
I
taking.
appreciate the time.
Thank you for the time.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay. Anybody else wishes to speak in the general section? All right. We will move into our business items. Item number 1 is the Salmon Point Livestock District petition. Public hearing continued. We're in the deliberation phase, and I believe, counsel, help me here.
Okay, this was continued from February 7th. At that time, you conducted a public hearing on the proposed petition for the Salmon Point Livestock District. During that hearing, you did close the record and then went into the deliberation. At that point, you wanted to view the site before you made a decision, and so now it's scheduled for a decision by the board.
I know I did have a constituent contact me, and I was under the impression, I'd forgotten we had closed it. We had 2 hearings. One we'd closed, one that I thought we had not closed the information on. So that individual, I think, contacted you.
There were a number of people I've talked to, and I told them all that the record had been closed.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman, I wasn't here when the hearing was conducted. I was out of town, but I have taken the time to review the video testimony and everything that was presented at the meeting, so I am up to speed on the issue. I've been aware of it out there. I think Mr. Key's been in touch with me some years ago about this issue, and so I am aware, prepared to vote.
Okay. And I know, Mr. Chair, I had gone out, driven the area, looked at the residences out there where they have some fences. Some are constructed very solidly out of concrete walls. Some are just temporary electric fences that are put up. Looked at some of the area that is in crop. Appears to be grassy and also alfalfa. So, yes, we looked at that area very thoroughly.
Yeah, and without repeating what Commissioner Givens just said, we happened to coincidentally tour the site on the same day. So
I've
we
been there
both-
many times and I'm aware of that
Well, I've
property.
been there before, but not for a while, and so we did actually, as promised, go tour the entire boundaries of the district.
And the interesting part here is that the request is not to enact the district, but rather to conduct a vote on the district, which I'm inclined to allow people to vote on things that come before us when they can, or when we can. So I'm inclined to go along with the election. And when you're ready for a motion, I can make that.
I'm ready anytime.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we allow the action on the petition to go forward and that there be a vote conducted for it.
Mr. Chair, before I move forward, a question to County Council. When can that be done? What's the timeline for that?
Originally, it could have been done May 15th, but that's past that time frame now. So in checking with the Elections Department, they said any Tuesday in April would be available.
Okay.
So looking at them, it looks like probably, let's see, I can't read that, sorry. April 17th is probably adequate time.
How do they do the election?
They will just mail it to the 100 and, how many did they say?
60-some, I believe.
160. They have mailed the ballots to the 166 active voters in the district.
I think I asked you, there seemed to be a number of areas that weren't relevant. I mean, I didn't see any signs that livestock would ever be there, but did you not tell me that it requires a certain area?
It requires
2,000?
at least 2,000 acres to form a
But some of it
livestock
wasn't
district.
relevant, yeah.
Right. And so that's the reason the area was expanded to include more acreage.
Okay.
I will go ahead and second Commissioner Elfring's motion.
Okay, we have a motion, and a second, to conduct the election. I'm adding that on April 17th, is that correct? Further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. If the residents want to stay for the rest of the meeting, you're welcome, or we'll stop for a minute. It's a highly interesting agenda, but that's up to you.
Beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
Well,
Cationic emulsified asphalt.
Do we need to take a 5-minute recess till Doug gets back?
well, I don't know where he went.
He went out, I think, to talk to some of those folks.
We'll,
Did you realize that we had some people from Milton Free Water that surprised me? Richard Jolly
Yeah.
was here, he and his wife.
What were they here for?
I'm
This issue, apparently.
assuming.
we'll take a brief recess before we start the Tom Fellows show.
Any issues?
No, I just gave them the election costs.
Oh, okay. You know, we have a whole bunch of chairs right up here that are unoccupied, and to help out our health department, it would be healthy if everyone stood, stretched, and walked to the front. That's your exercise program. I know Jim Setzer would agree with me.
Well,
I'll move to the front. Well, we need to do one row at a time, you know.
since we're well supplied with cough drops and Kleenex, the health department may have made a wise decision to sit in the back.
With the issue of age, it's sometimes hard to see Vision impairs as you grow older.
Okay.
Speak for yourself.
Yes. While you were gone, I said we were having a brief recess, council,
Okay.
before we started the Tom Fellows show. Are you ready for that now?
Yeah, thanks.
All right, Mr. Fellows. You have item 2, 3, 4.
That's it. No more.
Okay.
Good morning. For the record, Tom Fellows, Public Works Director. So the first item we have before the board is every year we go out for our oil contract for our chip seal program. This year, as usual, we've requested quotes. We received 2 quotes, one from Idaho Asphalt, one from Western States Asphalt. Western States Asphalt had the low quote for the main product that we use, which is CRS2, and that came in at $381 per ton delivered. And so we're recommending that we go with Western States Asphalt as the supplier for our chip seal oil this year.
Tom, how does it compare to last year?
About $60 a ton more.
More.
It went up, price went up about $60 a ton.
Who was our contract with last year?
Idaho Asphalt. For years, it just bounces back and forth between Idaho Asphalt and Western States Asphalt. There are other suppliers out there, Albina, and there's one other one down in Portland, and they're never even close. In fact, this year Albina I thought was going to give us a quote, and they didn't. So,
Mr. Chair, I would move that we approve the contract with Western States,
Yeah.
Idaho Asphalt.
Western States.
Western States.
Western States Asphalt was the low bidder.
Okay, all right.
I would second that.
Okay, moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? In favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion
Yoakum
passes.
Road is not on our chip seal list this year. So.
Yoakum Road isn't? Well, it should be.
I thought there'd be a total pave. Curbs and gutters.
So you must be paving, eh?
I don't know. Second thing on the agenda before the board is Chris Thomas down on McKinney Avenue in Hermiston contacted me a couple of weeks ago and requested the county come down and patch their potholes on McKinney for reimbursement. McKinney is a local access road or a public road, so it's not a county maintained road. The residents do understand that, and I'm sure you're all aware of the conversations about that have been going on in the last 6-8 months. So I explained to him that I'd have to bring it before the board and get board approval. I gave them an estimate of about $1,500 to patch their potholes. They seem to be okay with that and asked me to bring it before the board and get your approval for the road department to go patch those potholes for reimbursement. This isn't out of the ordinary. This is the similar thing to what we've done in the past with Westfield Boulevard here in Pendleton. Come before the board, get approval to do that. Westfield Boulevard is also a local access road.
So there is a precedent for it.
We've done this. We certainly, our goal would be more to help out the residents as best as we can. I mean, but we can only do what we can do legally, and legally we can't put money on local access roads without being reimbursed. So.
Okay, for the record, I'd ask Doug, County Council, to get me some information on the process, what it would take, because those folks have talked about coming before the board with a petition to make that a county road. We've never done that have we, Doug?
Oh, not for decades.
I
but
haven't. It
but
hasn't
it's
been
before.
done since I've been here. I came in '94, so.
But their concern is if they did a lid, then yes, it's an improved road and everyone in the county is using that road and they feel like they're paying for a road that everyone else is using. But anyway, so we have it on the record. Doug is working on seeing what the process would be and how that would be done. I had one concern on the private part of that, if there's any way that if that was done, that would be considered a taking, but that's totally new to us.
Well, I think the property owners would have to consent to and it may not even be wide enough. I don't know how wide the road is viewed in that area. The other portion, I believe, is 50 feet wide, the public road portion. Because it was 40, and I think they dedicated, maybe it's only 45.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I hate to throw any numbers out there because it's been a little while since I looked at it, but I don't think the majority of our roads, I shouldn't say the majority, a number of our roads are 60-foot right-of-ways, and I believe that it is even in policy somewhere.
Yeah, I think it's state statute that requires it, the county road to be 60.
Requires at least 60 foot. So if the right-of-way isn't currently 60 foot, and that would happen, my assumption would be it would have to be 60 foot before we could do that. So.
Okay.
So this takes care of a temporary problem.
They obviously they don't feel like they want to pay for anything, but they're getting tired of the potholes, and this seemed to be an acceptable. So.
To your knowledge, have they contacted private contractors, or are we in a position of competing?
I honestly don't know that they have, and I think, I just don't know that they have. I know they talked to some private contractors about an overlay and some other things, but not about the patching that I'm aware of. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I would move.
Before you move, I will add to that the field trip to Salmon Point was intentional, but I was in Hermiston on Sunday and couldn't get out of Safeway one way, so I went out the other way and went up this street towards the experiment station and turned and could not, and was just, it was incredible. And I said, what road is this? And we continued down to the end and looked up at the sign that says McKinney. Went, aha, I've heard of McKinney. And I am here to tell you, it is, I go all over in the mountains, as you know, and I was even up on that Albee loop on Sunday later, but I did not encounter any road that was worse than McKinney. So.
Well, it has its share of problems, but I think we can satisfactorily patch it up for.
Well, they take potholes to a new limit.
So, with that, Mr. Chair, I'd move approval of the contract.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Order.
It would be Order Road RD 2018-03.
All right. The third item is a request. The contractor that is currently working on the Lamb Weston project down on Westland Road. I didn't realize just how big a project this was until they really brought it to my attention. They're going to be making improvements at Lamb Weston for the next year. They anticipate a peak of approximately 500 construction workers on that project. And obviously, not only their worker safety, but the safety of the driving public was high on their priority. So they contacted the road department, and what I asked them to do was put together a proposal for some improvements, temporary improvements that would work for them, that we could utilize through the course of the project. And they came back. They had an engineer work on it, and that's some of the information that's in this packet. I guess in a nutshell, what they're requesting is a temporary reduction of speed from 55 to 45 on that stretch of Westland Road that's impacted, and this is partly due to the temporary traffic signal that they want to utilize doesn't queue very well for traffic running 55. So in other words, if somebody pulls up on Cottonwood Bend Road, trips the signal, traffic running 55, it doesn't, the queues don't work very well. They need a 45-mile-an-hour speed to make that safe and give the traffic on Westland the opportunity to stop in the appropriate time. The other thing is they're proposing doing a little bit of widening on Cottonwood Bend Road to accommodate both a left turn and a right turn lane coming off from Cottonwood onto Westland, because they're anticipating, I believe they think about 60% of their construction traffic is probably going to be heading for the Tri-Cities. About 40% of it's going to be going towards Hermiston. So they want to, that'll clear those queues out a little quicker. And then that's the bulk of it. And then they're also gonna install some traffic signs, some other signs, LED type of signs, and some things for advance warning. I was very satisfied that they did a excellent job of putting together a traffic control plan for that area. Anyway, they'd like to get going on this as soon as possible. Therefore, I asked to bring it before the board and get board approval, because the board has to approve that temporary reduction in speed.
Tom, I've had a number of residents call me, and over the years, going out in that area and going out past the fire station and the new onion processing plant, a number of complaints about the increased traffic, the width of Westland, and the width of
Cottonwood Bend?
Cottonwood Bend, thank you. I'm thinking Canal Road now. But Cottonwood Bend Road, and the fact that the onion processing, when they set up parking lights for their parking area, those lights reflect right out into oncoming traffic rather than pointing down. Are you working very closely with Lamb Weston on the traffic revisions?
There hasn't. Well, we're kind of talking about two different things.
Operations.
The onion processing operation isn't part of Lamb Weston.
No, I realize that.
And so I haven't had any communication with them over any traffic revision having to do with their lights or any of that. And quite honestly, that's I didn't realize that lighting was the issue that you just mentioned.
And I didn't either until I just this last week had started getting calls about citizens' concerns about that whole stretch.
The only part of Lamb Weston that I've been working with is the contractor or their engineer in this respect. So I haven't had anything beyond this particular project with Lamb Weston. We are there's going to be some right-of-way issues that Matt Kinney is going to be working on down there with Lamb Weston and some other things. And I fully anticipate that after this project gets completed, that we will probably have to request another speed study from the state of Oregon on that piece of road to make sure that the speed is appropriate then for the facilities that are there. I'm surprised that at the width comment, because Westland Road is probably one of the widest roads we have in Umatilla County. It's actually got paved shoulders on it, which the majority of our roads don't. And I don't see, personally, I don't see the width as the issue. So, but to answer your question, no, I haven't had any direct conversation with Lamb Weston about that.
Yeah, I think it'd be good if you weave this whole thing into the broader concerns, because that has been before us, not with Public Works. I believe the last time it came before us was the Sheriff's Office, because of problems we've had when the onion trucks are pulling out of Columbia Basin Processing. Obviously, they're going very slow, pulling onto a 55-mile-an-hour road, and so Westland continues to get attention from people. So I, from my standpoint, would be really interested whatever you can do to continue studying Westland, and hopefully someday it will be 45 miles an hour.
Yeah,
I know we couldn't do that the last time.
Yeah, that's certainly a direction that Westland is probably headed for, and it's, again, it's just one of those situations where we have to make the requests of ODOT to do those speed studies, and then there almost has to be some changes between, because if they do a speed study and nothing has changed, they're probably not going to be very willing to come out and do another speed study. But where we are seeing changes out here, I think and I especially think that between this project and the Vedata project out there, should be able to trip that, and then we should be able to see about getting some further speed reduction on that road. And
Is Vedata on that same road?
it's on Cottonwood Bend Road.
It cuts off of it.
And for right now, they're utilizing Cottonwood Bend, but then in the future, their other access point is going to be out more towards Livestock Road and the freeway. So
We can do a temporary speed adjustment due to this. I know it's a posted 55, but man, I've been out on that road and had people and going at 50 miles and
Parnelli Gibbons.
and I've had people just blow by me.
I've had a number of
So-
comments from constituents about Westland Road and saying it needs to be cut back to 45.
well,
So I don't think this is going to cause anybody any grief at all.
And I would have to review the ORS again, and Doug may know off the top of his head, but regardless of the speed study, I believe it's within the board's power to go beyond that and not use those as their guiding principles on speed zones. In other words, you have the authority, I believe, to sign an order and make a permanent speed zone there without the recommendation of the state of Oregon. But in my small world, I think that takes on some liability, possibly, that might not be, that I wouldn't recommend the county take on.
So if we said, okay, this will be a permanent speed zone, and they've slowed the speed down, and somebody comes through there at, we'll say, 60 miles an hour and rear ends somebody because they were not used to that, would that put the county in a liable situation,
would it?
Doug? That's what I thought.
Why?
Yeah, so...
Well, I
so-
mean, if you have to, if you follow the state procedure, it basically eliminates the question about liability. If you, in turn, override that, then you're the one that exposes the county. The county would then be exposed to some type of liability.
That's a strange extension of someone's personal liability.
But that isn't the case if
Personal
it's
liability,
temporary.
For a temporary reduction like this, that is based on safety, both for the construction project and for the driving public, that is well within standards. That's well within the standards situation. For a permanent reduction of, say, the entire road, if you can't back it up with either MUTCD or some form of recognized standard, then I think that you're getting into some questionable areas that you may not want to be in.
And Tom, what would the possible, I know it would have to be off the top of your head, what would be the possibilities of a permanent traffic signal at the worst of those intersections for now, where we've got trucks pulling out?
My feeling is, even as high as the ADT is on that road, and I don't think, and I can't tell you the number off the top of my head, but I don't believe that it is high enough to to trip any of the triggers for a traffic signal based on MUTCD, which is what we try to
Right,
follow.
but we'd still have to go through this ODOT on that also.
I don't believe for traffic signal, we can do, traffic signals would be more in tune with stop signs and yield signs.
Okay.
And those are things that we bring before the board, but when the road department brings those before the board, we all, basically, we're putting our weight on that MUTCD is the standard, that's the recognized standard, and so we make sure that if it's in the book, that's the way we operate and present the standard.
Okay.
The last time we heard this, didn't we hear the accident and fatality data?
I think we may have, because there had been, well, there 2 or 3 fatal accidents on that stretch road. Can you remember, Doug?
I don't remember the
And
discussion.
there was at one point, now I could be thinking of a different road, where the county had been named in a lawsuit.
Not on Westland.
I don't believe on Westland. The last fatality that I remember out there was an individual that was coming south on Power Line Road, basically ran through the stop sign and clear across the road and into the property across the road and impacted, and I believe that may have been a fatality.
Was it Feedville?
No, one.
This
no.
is on Westland and
They
Power
came
Line.
from Power Line.
Well, perhaps it would be interesting while it's fresh in our minds to see that data. It's available, I assume.
The data off from,
The data, the historical data from Westland relative to accidents and fatalities, if in fact it exists.
we could probably dig that out.
I just thought it's not relevant to this consideration, but
Mr. Chair, I move adoption of Order RD 2018-04.
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Now you can get on with other business.
None more exciting. No reference to those who are coming.
Okay, we'll move into the anticlimactic.
No, that's intended, no, take it.
We'll move to the anticlimactic portion of the agenda. Are you ready, Melinda? This is to go ahead, Doug.
Take turns.
Alicia Southwick, Wellness and School Health Supervisor for Umatilla County Public Health. This is a request for an invitation to bid for a vehicle for the Public Health Department. We are specifically looking for an all-wheel drive vehicle because one of the main people using this vehicle will be traveling between Umatilla, Union, Baker, and Malheur counties as part of their grant work.
And the vehicle will be purchased with grant funding?
Yes, we have identified funding to cover the cost of the vehicle.
Mr. Chair, I'd move approval.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Powerful presentation. All right. Next item.
Jim Setzer, the Director of the Public Health Department. We're requesting approval to hire a temporary position for communicable disease investigator. We've been without a dedicated communicable disease staff person since October. The current director has been trying to fill in and keep our communicable disease capabilities and activities in accordance with the state mandates and requirements. But at this point, we wish to continue to recruit for a full-time CD person as per our sort of departmental organogram. But in the meantime, to hire someone to temporarily to help us out and help me with a lot of the routine investigative and documentation and administrative requirements of the county's communicable disease work. We've asked for 6 months. We continue to recruit. If someone walked in tomorrow, we would hire the person's, this temporary position would be terminated, and we'd move on to how we really want to address CD work in the county.
The director and I have vetted this pretty thoroughly and looked at a wide variety of options, and due to our difficulties in hiring personnel in public health, we're getting more and more creative.
This is indicative of a broader discussion that we've had around recruitment and retention of public health staff, and so we've taken a subset of the CD nurse position and carved out this position, but I think it'll be a great help. I think the state will be very much pleased to see someone dedicated to just this activity and keeping us doing a good job.
Jim, if you're unable to identify a true candidate, a CD nurse, and you have this temporary position, is it possible that might morph into more of a permanent position? Is it possible to do that? I'm not sure what credentials are required and so on. But
it is possible to do that, and that would be done in the context of a broader sort of reorganization of skills and competencies and required programs within the department. And there could be some ways to mix and match those in a different way. We're actually thinking about those things actively, and so this could become this CD investigator position could be carved out eventually, but that's not currently what we're looking to do.
But I think it does. Help me if I'm wrong. Doesn't this help with public OHA's desire to have regional capacity when possible? You talked about 4 counties, did you not?
Actually, 14 counties. At the same time, help is on the way in the form of state support to Eastern Oregon to build our communicable disease capacity in a shared way, but those resources won't be sufficient to keep our day-to-day activities. There'll be more in terms of capacity building, response to outbreaks, and sort of the work of the CD investigator is not sort of constant. It goes up and down based on threats or situations or things that arise within the community.
Is our difficulty getting a permanent CD nurse, does that have to do with the fact that there's a shortage of CD nurses and all of them are already employed, or is it a factor that we're just not competitive in salary?
Yes. No, I would say, I would say actually, Commissioner, it's twofold. I think that in Eastern Oregon in general, and I've spoken with my peers in Morrow County and Union County, Baker County, there is a shortage of nursing, available nursing staff, both for county as well as private providers, public providers, hospitals. Secondly, I think we are at a competitive or comparative disadvantage in recruitment in some ways, and actually we're undertaking discussions with the HR department and others as to whether we can't improve our competitiveness in that field as well. So we're trying everything and trying to be creative about it.
Basically, if somebody wants to go to the metro region, they're going to be offered a lot more money for those types of jobs.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Did we do item 6?
That's what's,
That was that, item 7,
yeah, this is number 7.
prescription drugs.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going on the old thing. Yes, okay.
Hi, this is Alicia Southwick from Umatilla County Public Health again. We in the fall of 2017, received the prescription drug overdose prevention funding from the state of Oregon. Actually, came from SAMHSA. It was federal funding that was passed through Oregon Health Authority. And with that, we hired a grant coordinator to oversee those activities between Umatilla, Union, Baker, and Malheur counties. This person was hired and has been able to provide additional job duties that were not within the original job description. Most specifically, it has included providing education and teaching activities in the county, which is very helpful. It actually saves us money that our employed person is able to provide the education and teaching rather than having to bring in someone else, which is how we originally anticipated that it would go. But we were able to hire someone who has the educational and experience background to do that themselves, and therefore we are requesting to reclassify the position to the prevention education specialist position to better reflect the level and skill of work that they are completing.
I believe I had asked the question that this requires a bachelor's degree.
It does now. Previously, at the previous scale, it did not. The new position does, and this person currently hired in the position meets that qualification. Actually exceeds it. They have a master's degree.
For the benefit of my colleagues, I have to believe if we're going to make these kind of adjustments, this is, for the most part, a bachelor's position.
Absolutely.
So this person works out of our department?
Yes.
For the other counties?
Yes, all 4 counties. The funding is for all 4 counties, and one of the counties was to be selected as the lead, and Umatilla was selected.
Okay. How long is the grant?
The grant runs until June of 2019.
Okay.
Maybe May of 2019.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd move approval.
Second?
Moving second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 8. Is that right?
8 and 9 coming. It's the Paul Chalmers show.
Okay.
This is the Doug Olson.
Okay. Oh. This is coming before the board for approval for sale of property. This was tax foreclosed property. It's located near Umatilla, basically abandoned railroad right away. And so the county foreclosed on it, I believe, in 2014, and it was listed on the auction for $55,240. It was not sold. We recently received a bid from the adjoining property owner to purchase a property for $8,286. This is the minimum amount allowed under law, so it is before the board for approval.
And how long did we have it listed for sale?
Well, it's been, I think it was part of the auction in 2015, and we've had it since then for sale.
Chair, I move adoption of order BCC 2018-022.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. BOPTA summary.
You have paperwork, Doug?
Yeah, the order.
Paul Chalmers, Director of Assessment and Taxation for Umatilla County. Just a little bit of sidebar conversation. I think we actually heard 14 appeals. Just as an observation, I attended the BOPTA training along with the BOPTA board out at the media center at the corrections facility or at the sheriff's office. Part of my motivation of attending that meeting was to help make sure that the Department of Revenue training staff highlighted the fact that this environment of BOPTA is supposed to be fact-based rather than emotional-based. And that all being said, just as an observation, it felt in a couple instances that decisions were made more with emotion rather than facts. That being said, I was pleased with the process. I was very, very pleased with staff. They did their due diligence. The chairman of the BOPTA committee requested in our pre-meeting dialogue to have information provided to them a week in advance, which is the first time we've done that, where they actually received the assessment and taxation staff reports and comparables and such along those lines a week in advance, so they'd have time outside the scope of the actual BOPTA hearing. All that to be said, at this point in time, we are going to move forward with the rulings with regards to how they ruled. Don't plan to take them on to magistrate. It was going to be cost prohibitive in one particular case. We had an estimate of a $4,500 bid to have a fee appraisal done on a piece of property that I had some concerns with. And for all intents and purposes, it's not a good use of county resources. So the issue that was tied to that is then these become adjudicated values for a period of 5 years.
How long did deliberations take? How many days? One?
We were done in about a day.
It was a day.
Yeah. They actually powered through lunch.
Yeah, they suggested the next time is that maybe space them out a little bit longer. I think are 15 minutes allotted.
Yeah, for
and they
each
thought a little bit,
each side
a little bit
15
more.
minutes. So
And how many cases were there again?
14, I think, that were actually heard.
Yeah.
There was many stipulations that took place ahead of time. There was multiple no-shows as far as participation. I think we had one telephoned in from Louisiana, if that's right, Louisiana, Texas, someplace out of the area. And then we had, I believe, 4 folks that physically showed up for the hearings.
And I can remember in years past, we've spread those out. Of course, we had more
Yeah.
in years past. We spread those out over a period of, I think the most was like 3 days.
Yeah.
But with less and less appeals, that's gone down.
Yeah, we do our due diligence to try to get that resolved by December 31st, if at all possible. And even in this case, I believe there was 60 filed, and we got stipulated agreements all but 14.
Okay.
That sound about right, Doug?
I think so, yes.
This is a slightly different procedure this year than we've done in that, in order to make it consistent with Budget Committee, Planning Committee, and others, we opted to move towards greater citizen participation and guidance, because there's some other committees we have too that are predominantly citizen guided, which I believe is the intent. And so this year we went a step further, and it was entirely a citizen board, including a chair.
Yeah, I actually really appreciated his suggestion, and as far as getting that information delivered to them early. One, it brought closure from my staff to have their stuff together, which is always the case anyhow, but it allows them a little more comprehensive time to review the information that was provided to them from a factual basis rather than an emotional basis.
We did have a resignation. Well, actually, Terry Carty, who's the longest-serving member, asked to be made an alternate, and so we have an opening now for if we decide to do our geographical representation, would be this area. So,
Mr. Chair, I would move adoption of Order BCC 2018-021, and that we offer our thanks to the BOPTA participants.
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Was that motion included that we should write a letter and thank them?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Yep. Next item, modular purchase.
There's not any written information on this.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dan Lanai, Director of Administrative Services. We're in a little bit of a wait mode, but I was approached by one of the board members for the Mountain Freewater School District that they are surplusing the modular buildings that are at the Grove Elementary School. And they are planning to put a document out there under surplus property this week, and I have not seen it out there yet. I've talked with Aaron Duff, their business manager there. Their plan is to sell those to government agencies for $1. These modulars, they assume they're going to have multiple agencies, so it'll probably be a draw of the hat. Your name would be put in, whoever fills out the application, and then the first one drawn will get to pick the modular that they want, and their variant of age. They're a little bit similar, newer than the others. Then they are required to have those moved by July 1st, I believe, off the property. That's one of the conditions of the contract is for $1, but they have to be moved by July 1st. I'd like permission to, when it does come available, to go ahead and apply for that so that we could purchase one of these, or maybe hopefully two if possible, to utilize at our fairgrounds as a temporary housing until we have a new building built for the fair office.
Sounds like a good deal. What does it cost to move them?
These are ones that actually are put on wheels. They're a little different than the last modular that we moved, which was actually has to be put on a lowboy. So the move is a little cheaper, but it's a greater distance, and they don't all have the wheels or the tongues. I would estimate to get that moved and set up would be a similar cost to it was with our last modular, which was around $20,000 or something to get that there.
30, probably.
I would guess that.
Somewhere around there.
That would really provide a solution until we get funding, which we had worked on and did not happen this last legislative session. I still don't know what the city planning department with the city of Hermiston, their feeling is, or what the city toward that type of a building. They're okay with the current one that's there that is being used for the safety emergency management facility. I'm assuming they would be okay with it. These are not the type of style that building was, so they can be made to look a little bit better as far as a...
Well, they're a double wide versus a single wide, which
single
gives a little
wide.
bit different pitch on the roof.
Right.
And there are 2 classrooms, I think, in each of the buildings with restrooms in there, so there'll probably be a little bit of moving things around. But there's probably not utilities at the location that we're going to put it, so there'll be some of that 20 to 30,000 will be to get those utilities to that location. But I'm assuming we would place it near where we would build our
Storage and
permanent
office.
structure.
Yeah.
Well, this could conceivably be the office, could it not?
It could that could serve as a permanent office if it's allowed by the city of Hermiston, which now owns EOTech.
How much modification and updating would be required to make them useful?
Well, it really depends how they want to lay out the office. And that I would minimum would be just getting utilities there, getting it placed, and how we want to do the foundation and the stairs and painting it, making sure the roof is put back together. And then you could arrange the office furniture inside to make it usable. Now, if they want to start breaking up independent offices and separating things, then we have to put walls in, then that's going to add to the cost.
But sand's a great funding source for our storage and our office. This gets us there, and the biggest deal right now, my understanding, is office.
It is. It is.
And this is a good way to do it. Have you inspected them? How many are there?
I have not looked at them. I do have a list. There's 7 or 8, I can't remember, and they go back from, I think, 96 to 2005, I think, are the ages on the, there's a couple, I think there's one 96, and then the rest are around 2000, 2005. I can't remember the exact numbers.
Well, assuming that we authorize you to bid on 2 of them, can we also assume that in terms of due diligence that you would have them rated 1 through 7?
Yeah, we would get to, as you're drawing, you can go
That's
and
what I
look
mean.
at them and choose the
you
one
can
that you want.
choose, so you would know which ones you want.
Yeah, we would the newer would be should be the better of the ones.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we ask our public or admin services to put in a bid for 2 of those or put our name in, and if Dan and his staff would complete their due diligence on condition, the cost to move them, so we can have that information before us.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Commissioners.
One other thing, Mr. Chair, that's not on our agenda, I don't know if you want to bring this up now that Dan has been working on, and that's the additional half of the building Milton Freewater. We didn't talk about it with Dan in any detail yet, but he does have the facts and figures and some estimated costs. Do you want to bring that up now?
I think that's slated. If I'm not mistaken, Melinda, help me, isn't that slated for April 2nd at our staff meeting?
No, it was slated for the staff meeting previously, but it didn't happen.
Oh,
We weren't able to talk about
did
it.
you have to leave? Is that why?
I had to leave.
Oh, yeah, so after you left, we postponed it till April 2nd.
Okay.
Okay, at the staff meeting, too?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Oh.
Do you anticipate, because of postponing it, you anticipate any issues with the purchase?
Not right at the moment. I
Okay,
mean, it's only
good.
a few, I'm leaving in a few hours to go on vacation, and I won't be back to the 2nd. Hopefully,
Okay.
I'll be well, too, but that's my only
You won't have that done
anticipation.
before you leave?
Anyway,
Have a good
all right.
vacation. Have a good vacation.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thanks.
Okay. Item number 11, Charter Committee appointment. Do you want me to talk about that, Doug? Since I brought it up. What I have proposed is that Darla Huxell, who was originally an applicant to be on the Charter Committee, I don't know if this was entirely the reason, but I think we may have discovered that in an 18-month process, it's quite possible that we could have some attrition, but also Darla is highly recommended by some folks that I know in Umatilla as a representative of the Umatilla community. We do not have anyone from Umatilla on our Charter Review Committee, although it is one of the growing communities in the county. I think they're near 10,000. So I was bringing to the board the idea that Darla would be appointed an alternate, but in speaking with her, visiting with her, she is willing. Did you talk to her separately, Doug?
I was not able to reach her, but by the email, yeah.
I did. That she'd be willing to participate on a regular basis. And I think with an 18-month process, it behooves us to have someone standing by.
Okay.
With that background, so I would move for the adoption of order BCC 2018-023.
Second.
Discussion. In favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
And
Do
then,
we want to ask council, we've had one meeting or two?
Excuse me, what was that?
You've had a meeting, haven't you, or two?
One, and the second one is scheduled for April 3rd. The first one is most of organizational meeting, and Michelle Grable was voted chair of the committee, and Don Miller is a vice chair. And the next one scheduled for April 3rd will include a presentation by Rob Bovett of AOC.
Okay, thank you.
Doug, do we, I know Jennifer was here and left, do we need to go into quickly an executive committee?
There's nothing really to report at this point.
Okay.
All right. Anything else? We'll go into an opportunity for commissioners to share anything they wish to share.
I would share that I visited the proposed site. As you know, we're working on a trail that basically shadows the Umatilla River from Echo to the Columbia River. And I was taken on a tour of the location in Umatilla from the Columbia River to the end of their urban growth boundary, and they've already begun constructing. They've cleared some way down there and have gotten approval from the Corps of Engineers and are moving that along, and it's going to be quite an impressive thing when it gets done. It'll be really nice to see. Kelly Nobles was the one who took me on the tour, and the trail in that section crosses their property, which they're just very excited about having it happen. Good. They really want to see it. We are approaching a time to have another meeting on dispatch to go over the dispatch budget with the contributors, those who contribute to it by contract. They need to know where it fits with any changes in our dispatch budget, and how it fits into theirs, because they share a portion based on our budget, so that's coming up.
I had a positive interaction with dispatch last night, and they succeeded in having a train move so I could go across the tracks after an hour. So,
Well, I've heard they can move
good
mountains.
customer service.
The LIPSIC committee had a bidding for providers on the drug court, which is being reinstituted. There was only one bidder, and it was not our human services did not bid to conduct that. So
I know that.
it was given. We had a hazmat emergency tabletop on a tipped and burning oil car. I had to leave in the middle of it. Commissioner Givens can probably comment more about how that went.
Actually, it went pretty well. The entire group that was there dealt with the communication and coordination between all the different agencies and the different folks involved. I made a comment, and I don't know if you were there, Commissioner Elfring, when I made the comment. They asked what the role would be of elected officials. And I made the comment and still believe this and will always make that comment that elected officials need to stay out of the way and only be a resource to get information out to the state and federal agencies, sign the declaration of disaster and emergency, and work to get state and federal assistance immediately. So,
It's kind of like a doctor's pledge that to do no harm.
Yes.
Stay out of the way and allow the process to work.
Yep. And the director, that tabletop, said he was glad that was brought up. They've had issues in the past where elected officials feel like they have to be down in the middle of the action, and they actually just get in the way and create problems.
Yeah. That's all I had.
And with that, of course, I reported on that portion of it. We're still waiting on information about our Blue Mountain Forest Plan. That has had numerous lawsuits filed and threatened to be filed, so that's a hang-up. The other big issue is mitigation that's still going on with the water projects in the west end of Umatilla County. I've been working with JR, with NOAA, and trying to coordinate some meetings. Our eastern neighbors union, Wallow, Baker County, and even Malheur County still have some angst about that, and they're still concerned. So we are working on doing a better job, or that group is doing a better job of that issue. And then, of course, the big thing is the water master over Milton Fruitwater. That is we had a report at the Watershed Basin Council Monday night from Greg Cybernagel, the assistant water master, actually the water master for this region, who said that it would be about a 30-day training process, maybe not that much. The individual they've hired is well-versed in water law, hydrology, and he's been an assistant water master in a number of different basins throughout the state of Oregon.
Will he be resident here or there?
You know, that I do not know. He will be, his office will be
There.
the one we're providing, that the county's providing full-time in Milton Fruitwater. So I'm assuming he may try and move over to that area.
Are you done?
Yeah.
I would like to acknowledge Melinda's contribution to yesterday afternoon's event.
Fantastic.
It went quite smoothly with little contribution from anybody but Melinda, and assistance from maintenance. But I think when we first started it, we almost thought it might be a ceremonial visit between the two boards. Quickly became apparent that it's a whole lot more than that. After yesterday's session, I think it even became more apparent. And if everybody heard at the end, the agreement that we would have a fall, winter, and spring meeting. And so next fall, we can look forward to an invitation from their board to have another meeting. We won't necessarily go to the same places. For example, I have no problem if we schedule our winter session at Stafford Hansel. We talked about that this time for convenience, but they wanted to come here.
Yes.
So, and I think in the case of the first meeting, we wanted to go to Hepner to see the new building, but they do have a site in Boardman, I believe.
Right.
So,
You know, I was really very pleased with the outcome because it turned out that when we really sit down and talk about it, we have a lot more in common with Morrow County
Very much.
than any of our other neighbors, and especially the economic end of East Morrow and West Umatilla County. That is a driver for both counties for jobs and housing and the economy. So
All the issues that we discussed there were
Yes.
very much mutual things that need to be solved.
well, Phil Wright told me afterwards that there was so much meat in the meeting that he probably will have 3 separate
Wow.
stories or approaches
okay.
in different ways because of the amount of stuff that we talked about. I mean, not necessarily just, not really just an account of the meeting, but there was at least 3 issues that warrant further investigation for them to explore. So I think that's just added validation that it went well.
yes.
Well, the joining in of the tribes too with JD.
Yeah, and I
Really a good reach out.
I did, that reminds me of 2 things. I did reach out to Judge Schaefer, who's interested in continuing. Gillum County, who's interested in continuing the conversation. And during the economic development workshop, Antone Minthorn asked me, he said, it's time we have another joint meeting with the Board of Elders. So perhaps in May.
Okay.
You talking about the Board of Trustees?
Board of Trustees, yes, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
I have nothing further.
Okay.
Not either.